It was the coldest night of the year. The thermometer read a brutal 18 degrees Celsius, and every sensible creature had taken shelter. But one mother dog, desperate to protect her young, did something remarkable. She led her 3 shivering puppies straight to the doorstep of a stranger's home. What drove her to risk an encounter with humans in such frigid darkness? And how did the unsuspecting homeowner respond? Their decision shaped a fragile family's fate and sparked a wave of compassion in the midst of an unforgiving winter. In the midst of a ruthless winter, the landscape lay cloaked in a thick blanket of snow, each flake shimmering under the glow of a waning moon. Bitter winds howled through the skeletal trees, and the silence of the night was broken only by the crunch of paws against frozen ground. Amid this desolation, a solitary figure emerged, a mother dog with eyes full of determination and heartache. Her fur, once a vibrant testament to life and resilience, was now dusted with frost, and her breath, visible in the icy air, spoke of relentless urgency. With every step, she navigated the treacherous terrain, her instincts guiding her through the swirling snowdrifts. The puppies, huddled closely against her, trembled not only from the biting cold, but from the overwhelming fear of the unknown. Their tiny bodies shivered as they followed their mother, trusting her implicitly despite the peril that lay ahead. In her eyes burned a fierce resolve. This journey was not just about survival, but about offering her offspring a glimmer of hope amid despair. Ahead, the warm, inviting glow of a modest home punctuated the dark, wintry night. The soft light spilling from the windows promised refuge and solace, a stark contrast to the bitter world outside. Driven by maternal instinct and an unyielding will to protect, the mother dog pressed on, her paws leaving fleeting imprints in the deep snow. Every cautious step was a defiant challenge to the relentless cold, a testament to the power of love in its purest form. As she reached the doorstep of the stranger's home, the scene was nothing short of cinematic. A small, fragile family, braving the harsh elements, united by a bond that transcended language and circumstance. The stage was set for an encounter that would test hearts, shatter preconceptions, and ultimately reveal the transformative power of compassion in a world that sometimes seems devoid of warmth. The harsh winter had transformed the world into a frozen wasteland, where every breath was visible and every step a battle against nature's fury. In a small, isolated town on the outskirts of a snow-covered valley, the unforgiving chill of 18 degrees Celsius had forced nearly every living creature into hiding. Amidst this brutal landscape, the plight of one mother dog and her 3 tiny puppies unfolded like a desperate plea for survival. In the fading light of dusk, as the last rays of the sun struggled to warm the icy ground, a scruffy yet determined mother dog emerged from the shadows. Her fur, once a warm tapestry of browns and golds, was now clumped with frost and dusted with ice. Every muscle in her lean frame tensed with urgency as she navigated the slippery sidewalks and barren fields. She was driven by a singular purpose: to save her puppies from the bitter cold that threatened to claim their fragile lives. Huddled closely against her body, the 3 puppies, barely more than wobbly bundles of fur, trembled uncontrollably. Their eyes, wide with fear and uncertainty, darted around at every unexpected sound. The distant howl of the wind, the creak of a frozen branch, and the occasional crack of ice breaking underfoot. The mother dog, instinctively protective, nudged them forward with gentle urgency, her eyes constantly scanning the horizon for any sign of refuge. After what felt like an eternity of wandering through the desolation, the family spotted a welcoming glow in the distance, a modest house with warmly lit windows that promised shelter from the raging storm. The house, modest and unassuming, stood like a beacon of hope against the endless white of the snow. Its weathered exterior and soft, inviting light were a stark contrast to the harsh elements outside. As the mother dog drew closer, the weight of her decision pressed on her. Every instinct told her that the safety of the unknown was a risk, yet the threat of freezing to death was far greater. She paused at the edge of a snowbank, her breath misting in the air as she considered her next move. Inside the house, voices murmured quietly, voices of people going about their evening routines, unaware of the silent struggle unfolding outside their door. Inside that warm abode lived Michael, a reclusive artist known in town for his quiet, solitary life and his deep empathy for all living creatures. Michael had spent many cold nights painting the winter landscapes from the comfort of his cluttered studio, his heart often aching for the unseen suffering of the world beyond his windows. That night, as he sipped his tea and gazed out at the swirling snow, a faint sound at his door made him pause. There was something unusual in the rhythmic crunch of paws on snow, something that stirred a forgotten memory of compassion. With hesitant steps, Michael opened the door and was met with the sight of the mother dog standing timidly on his doorstep, her eyes filled with urgency and silent plea. Behind her, the 3 puppies, shivering and vulnerable, pressed close in a desperate search for warmth. Michael's initial shock gave way to an overwhelming sense of responsibility. He knelt down, extending a gentle hand, murmuring softly, "It's okay, come in. You're safe now." His voice, tender and reassuring, broke through the storm's howl and the dog's wary silence. Inside, the warmth of the house embraced the trembling family. Michael hurriedly fetched blankets and a bowl of lukewarm water, setting them gently near the crackling fireplace. The mother dog circled protectively around her puppies as they huddled together, slowly beginning to relax in the reassuring glow of safety. Michael's actions spoke of a deep, unspoken empathy. He had not chosen to be a hero, but when faced with the raw, desperate need of another, his heart had compelled him to act. As the night wore on, Michael carefully tended to his new guests. He observed the mother dog with quiet admiration. Despite her obvious exhaustion, her determination shone through her every movement. He wondered about the long journey that had led her here, what sacrifices she had made, what dangers she had braved, all to secure a future for her young ones. In the soft murmur of the fire and the steady rhythm of his own heartbeat, Michael found himself drawn into their silent narrative of survival and maternal love. Outside, the wind continued its relentless assault on the world, but within the small sanctuary of Michael's home, a fragile family was beginning to mend. The initial shock of the encounter gave way to tender moments of connection, a shared warmth, a mutual understanding of loss and hope. Michael knew that the night was far from over and that many challenges lay ahead for both him and the rescued family. Yet in that moment, the simple act of sheltering a stray in the cold became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the most desolate conditions, compassion can ignite a spark that defies the darkness. With the first hints of dawn peeking through the frost-laden windows, Michael sat quietly by the fire, watching as the mother dog rested her weary head and the puppies, slowly lulled by warmth, began to sleep. He felt a profound sense of purpose stirring within him, as if this unexpected meeting was the beginning of something transformative. In a world where every sensible creature had taken shelter from the cold, one brave act of kindness had created a connection that promised to change lives forever. As the early light of dawn began to filter through the frost-covered windows, Michael found himself in a quiet moment of reflection. The events of the previous night, so unexpected, so raw, continued to echo in his mind. In the soft glow of the morning, every detail of that fateful encounter with the mother dog and her 3 shivering puppies felt etched into his heart. He sat by the gently crackling fire, a steaming mug of tea warming his hands, and let his thoughts wander back to the desperate journey that had led these fragile lives to his doorstep. Michael's home, once a solitary sanctuary of his art and introspection, was slowly transforming into a living testament to compassion. With the remnants of the storm still visible in the damp footprints on the floor and the lingering chill in the air, he began to take stock of the tasks that lay ahead. It wasn't just about offering temporary shelter. He realized, with a bittersweet pang, that these animals needed proper care to overcome the trauma of the harsh winter and their perilous journey. The mother dog, who had instinctively led her puppies to safety, now rested in a corner near the fireplace. Though her eyes were heavy with exhaustion, they retained a vigilant alertness. Every so often, she would nudge one of her pups, a tiny, malnourished bundle, reminding it of her presence, urging it to stay close. Michael observed this silent exchange with growing empathy. He recalled his own moments of isolation, the days when he felt invisible in a bustling world. In that moment, the animal's quiet determination stirred something deep within him, a call to action he had long suppressed. Determined to provide more than just temporary refuge, Michael decided to seek professional help. He made a call to the local veterinarian, Dr. Elise Carter, known not only for her expertise but also for her kind heart. "I have a stray that needs immediate attention," Michael explained, his voice gentle yet tinged with urgency. "A mother dog and her puppies found on my doorstep last night. They're suffering from the cold, and I fear they need more than just a warm place to sleep. Doctor." Carter assured him that she would visit as soon as possible, promising to check their health and offer guidance on proper care. While Michael awaited Dr. Carter's arrival, he busied himself with small acts of kindness. He gathered extra blankets, laid out a makeshift bed near the fire, and even rummaged through his modest pantry for some nourishing food suitable for the animals. The simplicity of these actions brought him a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in years. In the midst of a bleak winter, a new chapter was quietly unfolding, a chapter where compassion bridged the gap between human solitude and the suffering of another living being. Throughout the day, Michael found himself engaging in a silent dialogue with his unexpected guests. "You've been through so much," he murmured softly to the mother dog as he gently stroked her head, his voice a soothing balm against the lingering shadows of the night. In response, her eyes softened, and she pressed closer, a wordless acknowledgement of his kindness. The puppies, curious yet cautious, began to explore their newfound surroundings, their tentative steps echoing Michael's own journey toward hope and renewal. As midday approached, Dr. Carter arrived, her presence infusing the modest home with a professional calm. After a careful examination, she confirmed that the animals, though weakened and stressed, were in stable condition. "They'll need a proper diet, and I recommend a series of checkups over the next few weeks," she advised, scribbling notes in her small pad. Michael listened intently, absorbing every detail, his mind already racing with ideas on how to provide long-term care for the stray family. Yet, as the day wore on, new challenges began to surface. Michael's reclusive nature and long-standing habits of solitude suddenly felt inadequate in the face of such responsibility. He wrestled with a growing internal conflict. Could he, as a solitary artist accustomed to quiet isolation, truly transform his life and home into a haven for these animals? The weight of his own loneliness mingled with a burgeoning sense of purpose. It was as though the arrival of the mother dog and her puppies had ignited a dormant part of him, one that yearned for connection, for the chance to nurture and be nurtured in return. Later that afternoon, while the rain of the previous night had given way to a light, persistent drizzle, Michael stepped outside to clear his thoughts. Bundled in his worn coat, he walked slowly through the glistening snow, each step a meditation on change. In the silence of the winter landscape, he allowed himself to dream of a future where his art might capture not just the bleak beauty of nature, but also the transformative power of compassion. Returning inside, Michael felt a renewed determination. He resolved that the stray family would not only survive this brutal winter, but would come to thrive under his care. With Dr. Carter's expert guidance and his own newfound resolve, he began to plan for the future. A future where kindness and empathy could spark change, not only for the animals at his door, but for himself as well. In that fragile, hope-filled afternoon, as mother and puppies rested and Michael prepared for the challenges ahead, the world outside seemed a little less harsh. The small acts of care that began within these four walls promised to ripple outward, slowly melting the ice of isolation and fear with the warmth of genuine human connection. As the days passed and Michael settled into a new routine, caring for the stray family, an unexpected discovery began to unravel a mystery that he never saw coming. One crisp morning, as soft sunlight filtered through the frost-kissed windows, Michael decided to tidy up the small area near the entrance, where, the previous night, the mother dog had first sought refuge. While sweeping away remnants of melted snow and scattered leaves, his eyes caught a glimpse of something unusual beneath the worn doormat. Curious, he knelt and slowly lifted it. Tucked, there was a small, weathered envelope, its edges frayed by time and the biting winter winds. Michael's heart skipped a beat as he carefully opened the envelope. Inside, he found a handwritten note on delicate, unfaded paper. The message, penned in a hurried yet elegant script, read, "For those who are brave enough to care, take these pups as a gift. I have no more strength to battle the cold. Trust that hope finds its way in the darkest nights." There was no signature, only a single date at the bottom, one that Michael recognized all too well. The date corresponded with the anniversary of the day his beloved wife, Elaine, had passed away. In that moment, a surge of emotions overwhelmed him. Memories of Elaine's tender words, spoken on chilly evenings when she would say, "Compassion is our legacy," flooded his mind. Could it be that this stray family was somehow connected to her final wishes? Determined to uncover the truth behind this mysterious note, Michael began to piece together fragments of memories that he had long tucked away. Elaine had always spoken of fate and the inexplicable ways in which life offered second chances. She had once mentioned a stray dog that had visited their home during a particularly harsh winter, a visit so profound that it had altered the course of their lives. Yet Michael had never fully understood what she meant until now. The note felt like a message from beyond, a silent echo of her gentle guidance, urging him to continue her legacy of kindness. That afternoon, Michael sat at his desk, the note spread before him alongside old photographs of happier times. One particular photo caught his eye: Elaine cradling a small, scruffy dog with soulful eyes. The resemblance to the current mother dog was uncanny. A lump formed in his throat as he realized that perhaps fate had orchestrated this reunion. A final bittersweet message meant to help him heal and to remind him that love never truly dies. With a renewed sense of purpose and trembling resolve, Michael picked up the phone and dialed the number of a local animal rescue organization he had once supported with Elaine. He explained the situation, the note, and the strange similarities between the dog in the photograph and the one now resting in his modest home. The representative on the other end listened intently, her voice soft with empathy, and promised to look into the matter immediately. As the day wore on, Michael found himself oscillating between wonder and disbelief. Each time he glanced at the mother dog and her puppies, now nestled safely near the fireplace, he felt a profound connection that transcended mere chance. In their eyes, he saw echoes of Elaine's compassion and an unspoken promise that, even in the face of relentless winter, love could provide warmth and shelter. That evening, during a quiet moment as he fed the animals, Michael decided to speak aloud to the family he had grown to cherish. "I believe you all came to me for a reason," he murmured, his voice wavering with emotion. "Maybe it's a sign, a reminder that hope is never lost, even when the nights are long and bitter." The mother dog lifted her head, her eyes locking with his as if in silent understanding. It was a moment that bridged the gap between past sorrows and a future filled with possibility. Later that night, as Michael sat by the fire with a cup of tea warming his hands, he felt the weight of the mystery gradually lift. The note had served as both a revelation and an invitation, a call to continue a legacy of care that Elaine had so passionately believed in. The stray family was no mere accident. They were a gift, sent to guide him through his loneliness and to rekindle the spark of compassion that had once defined his life. The revelations stirred something deep within him, a blend of grief, hope, and determination. Michael resolved to honor Elaine's memory by embracing this unexpected responsibility, knowing that every act of kindness could ripple outwards, touching lives in ways he had never imagined. The note, the photograph, and the steadfast eyes of the mother dog all coalesced into a singular truth. Even in the harshest winter, love and hope can break through the frost, transforming despair into a promise of new beginnings. As the night deepened and the soft hum of the heater filled the room, Michael scribbled down his thoughts in a worn journal. He wrote about the mysterious note, about Elaine's gentle words, and about the silent message that seemed to connect the stray family to his own past. In doing so, he began to understand that sometimes the most profound miracles arrive not with fanfare, but as quiet whispers in the cold, urging us to open our hearts and let love lead the way. The discovery of the mysterious note had left Michael reeling with a mix of sorrow, wonder, and a renewed sense of duty. In the quiet aftermath of that fateful afternoon, he found himself oscillating between disbelief and determination, as the full weight of Elaine's legacy began to settle in. Late into the night, by the dim light of his desk lamp, Michael pored over old journals and faded photographs, each page echoing the tender refrain Elaine had once whispered, "Compassion is our legacy." The realization that the stray family might be connected to her final wishes filled him with both heartache and hope. At first, the overwhelming solitude that had defined his life threatened to drown him in grief. The silence of his lonely home, once a sanctuary for introspection and art, now seemed to demand more than solitude. It demanded action. Michael felt an urgent need to honor Elaine's memory, not only by preserving the warmth of their past, but also by extending that compassion to the mother dog and her 3 fragile puppies who had so unexpectedly found shelter at his doorstep. In that moment, his personal loss and the animal's desperate plight intertwined, creating a powerful impetus to change his life for the better. Determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious note, Michael immediately began making calls. He contacted the representative of a local animal protection organization, a warm, empathetic voice that assured him an investigation would be launched to trace the origins of the stray dog. "Mr. Michael, your message is truly touching, and we will look into this matter right away," she said. Her words were like a soothing balm, reassuring him that he was not alone in this unexpected mission. Meanwhile, Michael started transforming his daily routine. He decided that his home, once a quiet retreat for a solitary artist, would now serve as a sanctuary, a safe haven for these vulnerable creatures and a living tribute to Elaine's belief in the redemptive power of kindness. He rearranged the area by the fireplace, laying out extra thermal blankets and preparing a cozy nook where the mother dog and her puppies could rest undisturbed. Every carefully placed detail was a silent promise, a promise that Elaine's spirit would live on through every act of compassion. One chilly morning, as pale sunlight began to filter through snow-covered windows, Michael sat beside the mother dog, gently stroking her head. With a soft, trembling voice, he murmured, "I know you've been through so much, but now you're safe. I promise I'll do everything in my power to protect you and your little ones. Just as Elaine always believed, kindness can change the world." The mother dog, her eyes reflecting a quiet, unspoken gratitude, seemed to nod in understanding. It was as if her weary soul, despite the harshness of the winter and the journey she had endured, recognized in Michael a kindred spirit determined to make a difference. Over the following days, Michael noticed subtle but meaningful changes in both himself and his new guests. The puppies, once so timid and listless, began to explore their new surroundings with tentative enthusiasm, their playful movements gradually replacing the shadow of fear with sparks of curiosity. The mother dogs, ever watchful, still guarded her young ones but now rested more often, as if the constant tension of survival was slowly giving way to a fragile sense of security. These internal changes did not go unnoticed by those around him. Neighbors who had once whispered about Michael's reclusive nature now remarked on a newfound warmth in his eyes and a gentleness in his demeanor. Some would even stop by, not to intrude, but to offer small gestures of help. A cup of hot soup here, an extra blanket there, signs that a community was beginning to rally around him and the stray family. Michael's home, once isolated in its silence, now pulsed with a modest yet steady energy of collective care and concern. One afternoon, as Michael recorded his observations in a worn journal, Dr. Carter, the compassionate local veterinarian who had first visited to check on the animals, returned to monitor their progress. With a calm, reassuring tone, she explained, "Michael, the well-being of these animals is steadily improving. They need ongoing care, but you're doing an extraordinary job. Their strength is emerging day by day." Her words validated every effort Michael had made and reinforced his resolve to turn his personal tragedy into a beacon of hope for others. Inspired by Dr. Carter's encouragement, Michael became meticulous in documenting every small sign of recovery. He noted how the mother dog would nuzzle one of her puppies when it faltered, or how a playful tumble among the little ones could momentarily light up the room. These observations were more than mere notes. They were living proof that even in the midst of a brutal winter, acts of kindness could thaw the coldest hearts and spark the beginnings of renewal. As the days wore on, Michael began to engage more deeply with the investigation into the mysterious note. Meetings with the Animal Protection Organization, exchanges with fellow volunteers, and even informal chats with neighbors gradually filled the void that had once been defined by solitude. Each interaction, every shared story, reinforced the idea that in the darkest times, the simplest acts of caring can ripple outward and transform lives. In these moments, Michael discovered that balancing the pain of the past with the promise of a hopeful future was not only possible, but essential. His home had evolved into a living testament to resilience, a place where every act of compassion, no matter how small, had the power to mend a fractured spirit and heal the wounds inflicted by a cold and indifferent world. As the days passed and the fragile sanctuary in Michael's home began to stabilize, unexpected complications emerged that would test his newfound resolve. One chilly afternoon, while Michael was busy preparing a special meal for the stray family, a knock at the door startled him. Opening it, he found a young woman with inquisitive eyes and a camera slung over her shoulder. She introduced herself as Laura, a local journalist known for her compassionate stories about community heroes. Laura explained that she'd heard whispers in the neighborhood about a mysterious rescue on a bitter winter night, and was eager to document Michael's journey. Though flattered by the attention, Michael's heart sank with apprehension. He feared that public scrutiny might jeopardize the peaceful life he had painstakingly built for himself and his unexpected guests. Reluctantly, Michael agreed to speak with Laura on the condition that she maintain respect for the privacy of his new family. As Laura began filming in his modest living room, her presence stirred mixed feelings among the neighbors. While some praised Michael for his generosity, others whispered that an artist's home should remain undisturbed by prying eyes. This budding media attention soon attracted the notice of local authorities, and rumors began circulating about potential zoning violations and unsanctioned animal shelter operations. Michael found himself caught between the desire to honor Elaine's legacy of kindness and the risk of exposing his private haven to unwanted interference. Meanwhile, another challenge emerged from an unexpected quarter. Late one evening, as Michael was tucking the puppies in beside the warm glow of the fireplace, he noticed that one of the little ones, a fragile pup with large, sorrowful eyes, was not joining its siblings in their playful antics. Its tiny body trembled more violently than the others, and a faint whimper hinted at an unseen pain. Alarmed, Michael contacted Dr. Carter again. After a hurried examination at the local veterinary clinic, Dr. Carter delivered unsettling news. The pup was suffering from a congenital condition that was slowly sapping its strength. The treatment, while available, would require costly medications and specialized care. Michael's heart ached at the thought of losing the pup, and he now faced the harsh reality that his mission of compassion was also a financial struggle. As if these challenges were not enough, Michael received an unexpected phone call from an old friend, Daniel Reese, a former colleague of Elaine's who had drifted away after her passing. Daniel, now a community organizer, had heard of Michael's miraculous rescue and the mysterious note that linked the stray family to Elaine's memory. He wanted to reconnect and even offered to help Michael set up a proper shelter, hoping that together they could honor Elaine's vision on a larger scale. While Michael was touched by Daniel's concern, he was also wary. Memories of the past were bittersweet, and he wasn't sure if reopening old wounds would ultimately help or hinder his delicate progress. Amid these unfolding subplots, the local animal protection organization that had earlier promised to investigate the origins of the mysterious note now began to send representatives for follow-up visits. They asked probing questions about the stray family's health, the circumstances of their arrival, and even the significance of the handwritten note Michael had found under the doormat. Their inquiries, though well-intentioned, stirred a sense of vulnerability in Michael. It felt as though every facet of his private life was being scrutinized, from the intimate details of his late wife's legacy to the raw, unfiltered reality of his current struggles. Laura, the journalist, continued to document Michael's journey, capturing moments of quiet tenderness as well as the palpable tension of external pressures. In her interviews, Michael spoke hesitantly about the note, about Elaine's legacy, and about the inexplicable bond he had formed with the mother dog and her puppies. Her camera caught the glisten of tears in his eyes when he recalled Elaine's gentle wisdom, but it also captured his determination to protect the vulnerable lives now entrusted to him. Yet, as her report began to circulate in the local media, public opinion became divided. Some lauded Michael as a modern-day hero, a living embodiment of compassion in the face of adversity, while others criticized him for opening his home to what they deemed an unregulated animal rescue operation. At home, the weight of these external opinions compounded Michael's internal struggles. Late at night, as the winter wind howled outside and the flickering flame of the fireplace cast dancing shadows across the walls, Michael would sit alone with his thoughts. He pondered whether he was truly capable of sustaining this delicate balance between his artistic solitude and the responsibility of caring for a living symbol of hope. The financial burden of medical treatments for the ailing pup, coupled with the potential legal complications arising from his unsanctioned shelter, loomed over him like an impending storm. Despite the mounting pressures, a resilient spark remained within Michael. In quiet moments of introspection, he recalled Elaine's words about compassion being an enduring legacy. With renewed determination, he resolved to confront these challenges head-on. He reached out to community members, seeking both support and advice, and even considered Daniel's offer to establish a proper shelter that could legally house and care for stray animals. Michael began to draft plans for a modest but regulated sanctuary that might, in time, serve as a permanent home for not only his newfound family, but for other animals in need. As the days turned into weeks, the intricate web of subplots, media scrutiny, financial strain, community skepticism, and the personal echoes of the past created a challenging landscape that Michael was determined to navigate. Each obstacle, while daunting, was also a reminder of the profound impact that a single act of kindness could have on a community. In the midst of these turbulent currents, Michael clung to the belief that every challenge was an opportunity to honor Elaine's memory and to ignite a ripple of compassion that might one day warm even the coldest of nights. Amidst the swirling chaos of media attention, mounting financial pressures, and the weight of an unresolved past, Michael found himself increasingly caught in a labyrinth of conflicting emotions. Every day seemed to present a new challenge that forced him to question not only his ability to care for the stray family, but also the true meaning of compassion and legacy. One particularly stormy afternoon, as the wind howled outside and the once cozy living room grew tense with anticipation, Michael sat at his cluttered kitchen table, staring blankly at a stack of unpaid bills, the costs for Dr. Carter's treatments for the ailing puppy, combined with unexpected legal notices from local authorities, questioning his unsanctioned shelter operations, were beginning to overwhelm him. His hands trembled as he tried to make sense of it all. "How can I honor Elaine's memory when every step forward feels like 2 steps back?" he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible over the distant rumble of the winter storm. At that moment, the phone rang. It was Daniel, the old friend who had reappeared in Michael's life with an offer to help establish a regulated shelter. When Michael answered, Daniel's voice was gentle, yet insistent. "Michael, I know it's been hard since Elaine passed, but I truly believe that together we can create something lasting. You don't have to shoulder this burden alone." The words, though meant to comfort, only deepened Michael's internal conflict. He hesitated before responding, torn between a desire for support and a stubborn need to handle things his own way. "Daniel, I appreciate your concern," Michael replied slowly, "but I'm not sure if reopening old wounds is what I need right now. This responsibility, it feels so heavy, and every day I'm reminded of what I lost." There was a long pause on the other end before Daniel softly said, "Sometimes, Michael, healing comes from sharing the weight. Elaine believed in compassion. Let her memory guide you, not chain you." That evening, as Michael wrestled with these thoughts, a knock came at the door. It was Laura, the journalist, her camera bag slung over her shoulder and a look of earnest curiosity in her eyes. "Michael, may I come in? I'd like to speak with you about the impact your story is having on the community," she said. Michael, still burdened by self-doubt, reluctantly agreed. Sitting together in his living room, with the stray family quietly resting in the background, Laura gently probed, "How do you cope with all this attention?" I imagine it must be incredibly difficult to balance your personal grief with the responsibility you now feel." Her question was laced with genuine concern, and as Michael hesitated, the vulnerability in his voice emerged. "It's like every day is a battle, between honoring the past and trying to build a future that Elaine would be proud of. I'm torn between wanting to protect these innocent lives and feeling utterly alone in the struggle." Laura's camera captured every raw moment, every tear that welled up as Michael spoke of his internal battles. Meanwhile, Dr. Carter made another visit. In her warm, steady manner, she inspected the animals, then turned her attention to Michael. "I see the strain on you, Michael. Caring for these animals is a beautiful thing, but you need to take care of yourself, too. Remember, even the strongest caregiver can't pour from an empty cup." Her words resonated deeply, stirring memories of Elaine's gentle guidance. That night, as Michael sat in his studio surrounded by unfinished canvases and old photographs, he began to confront the painful truth. He was struggling to balance his own grief with the overwhelming responsibility of being a beacon of hope for the stray family. In a moment of quiet desperation, Michael reached out to a small support group of local animal lovers and community members who had heard of his plight. At a modest gathering in a nearby community center, voices mingled with both empathy and skepticism. One older woman, eyes filled with compassion, said, "Your heart is so big, Michael, but don't forget to nurture it as well. Elaine would want you to find solace in the warmth of others." A younger man, bristling with cynicism, countered, "But can one man really change the system? Sometimes these acts of kindness are seen as interference." The conflicting opinions only deepened Michael's inner turmoil. Later that week, as he sorted through his journal, Michael's thoughts spiraled into a profound inner dialogue. In the scribbled margins, he noted the sacrifices the mother dog had made, the trust reflected in the gentle eyes of her puppies, and his own hesitancy to accept help. "I'm scared," he wrote. "Scared that by letting others in, I might dilute the pure memory of Elaine, or worse, expose the fragility of what I've built." But as he reread Elaine's old letters and her favorite quote, "Compassion is our legacy," he felt a subtle shift in his heart. Perhaps vulnerability was not a weakness, but a necessary passage toward healing and growth. In the midst of these complex interactions and self-doubt, Michael's relationships began to transform. Conversations with Daniel, though initially laced with reluctance, evolved into heartfelt exchanges where shared grief became a bridge toward mutual understanding. With Laura's persistent yet respectful inquiries, Michael slowly learned to articulate the profound meaning behind his journey, allowing his audience to witness not only the struggle, but also the resilience born from deep-seated compassion. By the end of the week, Michael found himself standing at a crossroads, torn between isolation and the possibility of a united effort to create a safe haven. The emotional dilemmas were as relentless as the winter cold outside, but each conversation, each moment of raw vulnerability was a stepping stone toward embracing a new, collective future. A future where Elaine's legacy would be honored not just by him alone, but by an entire community coming together to defy the harshness of the world. As winter deepened and the days grew shorter, the pressures surrounding Michael's sanctuary began to intensify in unexpected ways. One frosty evening, while Michael was reviewing another stack of mounting bills and legal notices at his cluttered desk, a subtle but unsettling change in the atmosphere caught his attention. There was an unfamiliar weight in the air, as if every gust of wind whispered secrets of hidden dangers lurking just beyond his doorstep. It started with small, seemingly inconsequential details. At first, Michael noticed a black van idling a little too long near his property. Its tinted windows and quiet engine sent a chill down his spine, even though he tried to dismiss it as nothing more than a passing coincidence. But as the days went by, the van appeared at the same time each evening, parked silently along the side of the road, its presence growing more persistent and unnerving. One night, as Michael was checking on the stray family before bed, he saw a shadow flit past his window, a dark figure moving swiftly among the snow-laden trees. His heart pounded as he peered out into the darkness, uncertain if what he'd seen was real or merely a trick of the light. The mysterious figure vanished into the night as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Michael with an unshakable feeling that he was no longer alone. The mounting tension was compounded by an unexpected call from the local animal protection organization. A new investigator, Ms. Reynolds, introduced herself with a clipped tone that belied genuine concern. "Mr. Michael, we've been reviewing your case more closely," she said. "There are indications that the note you found and the circumstances of your rescue may be connected to something far more extensive than a simple act of kindness." Her words, delivered in a measured voice over the phone, sent a jolt of anxiety through him. What could possibly tie his lonely rescue to a larger, hidden network? At the same time, Laura, the persistent journalist, returned with new footage. During an unscheduled visit, she revealed grainy video taken by a local resident that showed the black van trailing Michael's home late at night. "This is what I captured," she explained, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and concern. "It looks like someone is monitoring your property. I'm not sure if it's related to your rescue, but it's definitely something we need to look into." Laura's revelation added a layer of urgency and suspicion, suggesting that Michael's heartfelt act of compassion might have unwittingly drawn the attention of forces with murky intentions. In the midst of these escalating developments, Daniel's reappearance took on an even more complex tone. During a tense meeting at a local cafe, Daniel confessed that he had been contacted by a shadowy figure earlier in the week. "Michael, someone approached me," he said in a hushed tone, glancing around nervously. "They claimed to know about Elaine's secret work with animal rescue, and they hinted that Elaine's legacy is far more controversial than we ever imagined." Daniel's words opened a door to a hidden chapter of Elaine's past, one filled with whispers of clandestine meetings, disputed funds, and secret partnerships with organizations whose names were never spoken aloud. Could it be that Elaine had been entangled in a network that now sought to reclaim what she had once given away so freely? That revelation only deepened Michael's inner turmoil. Late one evening, while sitting alone in the quiet of his study, he revisited old letters and photographs of Elaine, searching for any clues that might confirm or refute these ominous hints. In one faded envelope, he found a half-burned receipt and a series of cryptic notes that mentioned the Guardian Project and Operation Warmth. The references were obscure, but unmistakably connected to her passion for saving stray animals, a passion that had now taken on an entirely new, perhaps perilous dimension. Each discovery added to Michael's growing sense that his sanctuary was becoming the nexus of a long-forgotten and possibly dangerous legacy. The pressure of these mounting revelations and the constant surveillance began to fray Michael's nerves. At home, the black van's headlights would sometimes pierce the darkness through his window, and he could almost hear muffled voices discussing matters he wasn't meant to know. He felt increasingly isolated, caught between a deep need to protect the stray family and a dread that his every move was being watched. Even the gentle interactions with the mother dog and her puppies, once a source of solace, now stirred conflicting emotions, as if their innocent presence was a beacon for unwanted attention. At a community meeting organized by concerned neighbors and local officials, Michael was urged to explain the situation. Some questioned the legitimacy of his shelter, while others expressed worry over potential breaches of local ordinances. The atmosphere in the town hall was charged with anxiety and suspicion. "Mr. Michael, we all support your kindness, but if there is more to this story, if Elaine's legacy is tied to some covert network, we need to know," an official demanded, his voice echoing in the packed room. The meeting ended with no clear answers, only more questions and a palpable sense of foreboding. By the end of that week, Michael's life had transformed into a delicate balancing act between genuine compassion and an escalating intrigue that threatened to upend everything he had worked for. Every day, as he tended to the stray family and navigated the increasingly murky waters of public attention and hidden threats, he was reminded that in a world as cold and unyielding as the winter outside, even the warmest acts of kindness might draw the gaze of those with darker purposes. In the silence of the night, as Michael lay awake listening to the distant hum of the black van and the soft whimpers of the mother dog, he resolved that he must uncover the truth, no matter how painful or dangerous it might be. The threads of Elaine's secret legacy were beginning to weave a tapestry of mystery and menace, and Michael knew that his next steps would determine not only the fate of his sanctuary, but perhaps the very future of a legacy he had thought was lost. In the days following the unsettling week of heightened surveillance and mounting inquiries, Michael found himself drawn deeper into the labyrinth of Elaine's secret past and the mysterious network hinted at in the cryptic note. The discovery of terms like the Guardian Project and Operation Warmth in old letters now spurred him to search for answers. Late one evening, as a light snow fell gently outside his window, Michael sat down with his journal and began piecing together disparate clues, a task that would soon connect him to unexpected allies and reveal hidden facets of his late wife's work. That very morning, Michael received an unexpected visit from Daniel. The old friend, whose presence had become sporadic since Elaine's passing, arrived with a bundle of aged documents clutched in his hand. With a solemn expression, he spread the papers across Michael's dining table. "I found these among some of Elaine's belongings," Daniel confessed quietly. "I never dared look too deeply until now. But these letters, they mention meetings with people involved in an international animal rescue network. I think Elaine was more than just a compassionate volunteer. She might have been part of something much bigger, a covert initiative to save endangered animals and perhaps, in a way, bring warmth to the coldest corners of the world." As Daniel explained, Michael's heart pounded with a mix of excitement and dread. The documents detailed secret gatherings, covert transfers of rescued animals, and funding from sources that remained untraceable. One letter in particular mentioned Operation Warmth, a project that promised to provide sanctuary to animals in crisis, even in the harshest conditions. Michael realized that Elaine's legacy, the very compassion she had instilled in him, might have been the driving force behind an underground network dedicated to protecting life against all odds. Later that day, as Michael tried to digest these revelations, Laura reappeared at his door. With her camera and notepad in hand, she wanted to update her ongoing story. But this time, her focus had shifted from simple human interest to a broader, more intricate narrative. "Michael, your story has evolved beyond a personal rescue," she remarked softly as they sat in the living room. "There's a legacy here, something hidden in the past that could change how we view animal rescue and even community compassion. I sense there's a larger network at work, and I want to help you uncover it, but only if you're ready to share more than just your personal struggles." Though hesitant at first, Michael recognized that Laura's tenacity and respectful approach could be instrumental. He agreed to let her document the unfolding investigation, albeit with strict boundaries to protect the privacy of those involved. Together, they reviewed the documents Daniel had provided. Laura's inquisitive nature and journalistic expertise began to transform the raw details into a coherent narrative, one that suggested Elaine's secret work might have connections to international conservation efforts and even a few unsavory individuals exploiting that same goodwill for personal gain. At the same time, Dr. Carter's visits continued, but her concern now extended beyond the immediate health of the stray family. During one consultation, she confided to Michael, "I've been hearing whispers among some colleagues about a network that goes far beyond local animal shelters. It seems that some individuals are using these operations as a cover for more organized activities. I wouldn't be surprised if Elaine's past involvement was tied to these circles. It's a lot to take in, but if there's any truth to it, it means you're not just caring for lost animals. You're also safeguarding a legacy that might be under threat." These words sent chills down Michael's spine. The idea that his personal act of kindness could be entangled with a larger, possibly dangerous web forced him to weigh the cost of pursuing the truth. Meanwhile, neighbors began sharing their own stories. Some recalled seeing unfamiliar faces lurking near Michael's property, while others mentioned odd phone calls that hinted at pressures from unknown sources. The collective murmur within the community grew louder, each anecdote a piece of the larger puzzle. That evening, during a tense community gathering held at the local town hall, Michael was confronted by both supporters and skeptics. A middle-aged official demanded, "Mr. Michael, while your compassion is commendable, we must understand if your actions are part of an unregulated and possibly risky network. What assurances do we have that nothing illicit is at play here?" The room fell silent as Michael took a deep breath and, with steady resolve, recounted his experiences, explaining the note, the connections to Elaine's legacy, and the promise of Operation Warmth. His impassioned speech resonated with many, igniting both hope and a cautious determination to seek further truth. After the meeting, a shadowy figure approached Michael discreetly. In hushed tones, the stranger offered information. Elaine was part of a project that saved countless lives, animals and humans alike. But not all who were involved were pure in heart. There are forces that seek to exploit that compassion for profit and power. Be vigilant, Michael. The warning left him unsettled, but also spurred him to further investigate. In the following days, Laura's reports began to intertwine with Daniel's recollections and the stranger's cryptic hints. Together, the group started mapping out the connections between Elaine's hidden network and current local events. Each meeting, each shared document, built a narrative that painted Elaine not only as a beacon of personal kindness, but as a linchpin in an intricate web of global rescue operations, one that now needed protection from those who would twist it for darker ends. As Michael closed another long day with the stray family nestled around him, he felt both burdened and uplifted by the magnitude of the unfolding mystery. The fragile sanctuary in his home was no longer just a refuge from the brutal winter. It had become a battleground for truth, legacy, and the enduring power of compassion. The connections between his past, his present, and the unknown future were now clearer than ever. And with every step forward, Michael resolved to honor Elaine's legacy by shining a light on the hidden corners of a world that desperately needed warmth. Tensions had been simmering for weeks, but on one cold, chill gray morning, everything came to a head. Michael awoke to the sound of urgent knocking at his door, a sound that, by now, made his heart race with apprehension. When he opened the door, he was met by two stern-faced local police officers, accompanied by a representative from the town council. Their expressions were grave, and their words were laced with an urgency that left no room for pleasantries. "Mr. Michael," the lead officer said, "we need to speak with you immediately about your animal shelter operation. There have been multiple complaints, and it appears that your property might be in violation of several local ordinances." Michael's pulse quickened. His sanctuary, a place born out of love and desperation during the brutal winter, was now under scrutiny. He invited the officers inside, his hands trembling as he led them to the living room where the stray family still rested near the fireplace. The room, once filled with quiet hope and healing, now seemed to shrink under the weight of legal threats. Before Michael could explain, Laura burst into the room, her camera in hand, and pleaded, "Michael, wait, you have to let us explain. There's more to this than simple zoning violations." Her voice, full of determination, clashed with the cold efficiency of the authorities, but the officials remained unmoved, their questions pointed and direct. "We have evidence," one officer stated, "that your property is being monitored and that there are indications of unauthorized activities, possibly connected to this mysterious network your late wife was involved in." The mention of Elaine's name sent a shudder through Michael. His mind raced back to the cryptic documents and the whispers about Operation Warmth and the Guardian Project. The room fell silent as Michael struggled to collect his thoughts. At that moment, the doorbell rang once more, louder and more insistent than before. Michael exchanged a worried glance with Laura and hesitantly opened the door to find a tall, dark-haired man standing on his porch. His eyes were cold and calculating, and he wore a suit that suggested a corporate, perhaps even clandestine, affiliation. "Good morning, Mr. Michael," the man said in a measured tone. "My name is Mr. Harrington. I represent a private organization that has a vested interest in protecting certain legacies. I believe you have something very important in your possession." Michael's heart pounded as Mr. Harrington continued, "We have been monitoring the situation concerning your animal shelter and the connections to Elaine's work. I must warn you that you are treading on dangerous ground. Not only are you in violation of local regulations, but you may also be interfering with matters that extend far beyond this community." His gaze shifted toward the mother dog and her puppies, now cowering in a corner, and then back to Michael. "I advise you to reconsider your actions for the sake of your safety and the animal's well-being." The room was now a cacophony of conflicting voices, the local authorities, the intrusive Mr. Harrington, and Michael's own desperate protests. "I'm just trying to help these animals," Michael cried, his voice cracking with emotion. "I'm honoring Elaine's memory. She believed that compassion could change the world. I'm not involved in anything illicit." His words, however, seemed to fall on deaf ears. The officers exchanged skeptical looks, and Mr. Harrington's expression remained unreadable. Laura stepped forward, her voice steady but impassioned. "This is not a criminal enterprise. It's a rescue operation, a beacon of hope in a bitter winter. Michael's story is one of compassion, not of exploitation." Her camera captured every tense moment, every tear that welled up in Michael's eyes. Yet even as she defended him, it was clear that the mounting pressures were fracturing Michael's fragile peace. Outside, the ominous black van that had haunted Michael's nights pulled up discreetly near the property. Its headlights dimmed, but its presence unmistakable. It was as if the van were a harbinger of further intrusion, a reminder that forces beyond his control were closing in. The atmosphere grew even more charged when Daniel, the old friend, arrived unexpectedly. He looked disheartened and hurriedly explained, "Michael, I've just been informed that the organization Elaine once worked with is under investigation for illegal animal trafficking. They're trying to re-establish control over her projects, and it appears they see your operation as a threat." The revelation was a turning point. Michael realized that his simple act of compassion had inadvertently put him in the crosshairs of powerful, shadowy interests. The officers, Mr. Harrington, and even members of the community now seemed to be pawns in a much larger game, a game where compassion and kindness were entangled with corruption and danger. As the confrontation reached its climax, the room became a battlefield of ideas and fears. Michael stood at the center, torn between the pure desire to protect these vulnerable lives and the overwhelming force of external pressures. The legal threats, the suspicious surveillance, and the sinister implications of Elaine's hidden legacy converged into a single, inescapable reality. His sanctuary and his very soul was under siege. In that critical moment, as voices clashed and tension mounted to a fever pitch, Michael knew that he had to make a choice. Would he surrender his sanctuary to the demands of the authorities and corporate interests, or would he fight to preserve the legacy of compassion that Elaine had so dearly believed in? The answer, though fraught with peril, would shape not only his fate but also the future of every life that had found refuge under his roof. In the wake of the charged confrontation, Michael's world teetered on the brink. The living room, still echoing with the clamor of accusations and warnings, became the stage for a final and decisive showdown. The air was heavy with tension as the local police officers, Mr. Harrington, Daniel, Laura, and the newly arrived representatives from Elaine's old network, all gathered in uneasy proximity. Michael stood at the center of it all, his eyes blazing with a mixture of desperation and defiance. "Enough!" Michael cried, his voice cutting through the cacophony. "I am not a criminal, and I will not let anyone take away the one thing that Elaine believed in, compassion. I have offered these animals nothing but shelter, warmth, and a chance at survival. If protecting them means I must face every accusation thrown at me, so be it." His declaration resonated in the charged silence that followed, and for a moment, every person in the room seemed to pause, caught in the weight of his conviction. Mr. Harrington stepped forward, his expression cold and calculated. "Mr. Michael, you must understand that by operating outside the confines of local regulations and by potentially becoming involved with Elaine's controversial past, you are endangering more than just your own reputation. There are forces at work here, forces that will not hesitate to eliminate any obstacle." His tone was measured, but the threat underlying his words was unmistakable. Laura, her camera now resting on the table, interjected with a steady resolve. "What Mr. Harrington calls forces are simply the harsh realities of a system that punishes kindness when it doesn't fit neatly into a box. Michael's actions are driven by love, something that should not be criminalized." Her words sparked murmurs of agreement among some of the onlookers, while others remained unyielding in their skepticism. Daniel, visibly shaken by the revelation of Elaine's darker associations, added softly, "I know this may sound hard to believe, but Elaine's work was always about saving lives, not endangering them." Michael, You must trust that your intentions are pure. However, you also need to prepare for the inevitable fallout if these people come after you. His eyes met Michael's, pleading silently for him to see reason even as he shared his own turmoil. The police officers exchanged glances, torn between following protocol and being moved by Michael's impassioned plea. One of them, a younger officer with a compassionate glimmer in his eyes, spoke up. "Sir, we are duty-bound to enforce the law, but we also have a responsibility to ensure that no one is unjustly punished for acts of genuine care. Perhaps there is a way to resolve this without dismantling what you've built." His words, tentative yet sincere, offered a brief respite from the onslaught of accusations. Amidst the mounting pressure, Michael realized that the only way forward was to make a choice that would define not only his future, but also the fate of the animals he had come to love. With a deep, steadying breath, he said, "I will comply with the necessary regulations to ensure that this shelter is legal and safe, but I refuse to let the true purpose of what I'm doing be lost in bureaucratic red tape or exploited by those who seek power and profit over life." His voice, now resolute and firm, echoed his commitment to preserving the sanctuary he had created. At that moment, Dr. Carter re-entered the room, her presence a calming influence on the tumultuous scene. "Michael, if you're willing, I can help you navigate these legal challenges. I've seen enough in my career to know that compassion, when organized properly, can overcome even the strictest of obstacles. We can work together to create a formal shelter, one that honors Elaine's memory and meets all the necessary requirements." Her offer was a lifeline, a tangible solution that allowed Michael to channel his passion into action. Mr. Harrington, though still guarded, acknowledged the shift in tone. "If you can demonstrate that your operation is both lawful and beneficial to the community, we might be able to avoid further complications. But make no mistake, the network I represent will be watching closely." His words carried a promise of continued scrutiny, if not outright hostility. Laura, sensing that the narrative was reaching a pivotal turning point, asked, "Michael, what will you do now? Will you fight for this cause, even if it means exposing parts of Elaine's past that were never meant for public eyes?" Michael's gaze swept across the faces in the room, faces that now reflected a blend of hope, fear, and determination. And he replied, "I will do whatever it takes to ensure that compassion prevails. I owe it to Elaine, to these animals, and to myself." As the meeting drew to a close, the various parties agreed on a provisional plan. Michael would work with Dr. Carter and local legal advisors to transform his unsanctioned shelter into a fully accredited animal care facility. Meanwhile, an investigation would be launched into Elaine's past connections, with the promise that any nefarious elements would be exposed and removed. It was a delicate compromise, but one that offered Michael a path forward, a chance to honor his beloved wife's legacy without sacrificing the purity of his mission. With heavy hearts but determined spirits, the group dispersed, leaving Michael alone with his thoughts in the quiet aftermath. Outside, the ominous black van receded into the distance, its headlights a fading reminder of the threats that still lurked in the shadows. Yet in that moment, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. The decisions made in that room, fraught with conflict, emotion, and hard-won clarity, had set him on a course that, though dangerous and uncertain, was guided by an unwavering belief in the power of love and compassion. The bitter winter seemed to intensify with every passing day. Michael's once quiet sanctuary had transformed into a fortified bastion of compassion amid mounting external pressures. As dusk settled over the snow-covered landscape, an almost tangible electricity filled the air, a final build-up before the storm would break. That evening, Michael stood by the large window of his living room, staring out into the gathering darkness. The ominous black van, a recurring specter in his life, was parked silently at the far end of the street, its headlights dim yet foreboding. Every shadow, every gust of wind seemed to whisper warnings of what was to come. Inside, the tension among those gathered was palpable. Earlier that day, Dr. Carter, Daniel, and Laura had convened with Michael in his modest study. Together, they reviewed the latest intelligence from the Animal Protection Organization and the whispered reports from concerned neighbors. Now, The weight of these revelations pressed heavily upon them. A curt knock at the door shattered the uneasy silence. Michael's heart hammered as he opened it to find Mr. Harrington standing there once again, this time flanked by two stern-faced individuals whose eyes bore the unmistakable glint of authority. "Mr. Michael, we need to finalize our arrangements," Mr. Harrington intoned in a cool, measured tone. "Your operation is on the verge of interfering with matters that extend far beyond local ordinances." His words were laced with a veiled threat. It was clear that the private organization he represented was not willing to let Michael's compassionate endeavor continue unchallenged. Inside the study, the air grew even thicker with apprehension. Michael's allies exchanged worried glances. Daniel's voice broke the silence, low and urgent. "Michael, they're here to make one final demand. We need to decide now, do we comply, or do we risk everything by standing our ground?" The words struck like a physical blow. Michael's mind raced, weighing the cost of his ideals against the risk of losing everything he'd built. Laura, ever the observer, adjusted her camera with a determined glint in her eyes. "This is it, Michael. Your story has reached a tipping point. The public is watching, and so are those behind the threats. It might be time to reveal the truth about Elaine's work, to expose the network that has haunted you since that mysterious note surfaced." Her suggestion, while bold, only deepened Michael's internal conflict. He recalled Elaine's gentle admonitions, her belief that compassion should never be forced into the harsh light of publicity. But now the stakes were too high to remain silent. Dr. Carter stepped forward, her tone both pragmatic and empathetic. "Michael, we're not just fighting against a bureaucratic overreach. We're up against a hidden network that has exploited your wife's legacy for its own gain. I've seen evidence that points to illegal trafficking and covert operations linked to Operation Warmth. If we can expose this, we not only secure your shelter, but also honor Elaine's true mission." Her words resonated deeply, stirring in Michael a mixture of hope and trepidation. Outside, the wind began to howl as if echoing the turmoil within. The black van's engine purred softly in the background, a constant reminder of the looming threat. Mr. Harrington's eyes narrowed as he spoke again, his voice growing colder. "This is your final warning. We will not allow your operation to disrupt the delicate balance that already exists. You must either bring your shelter into full compliance with the law, or we will take matters into our own hands." The threat hung in the air, heavy and menacing. Michael's pulse raced as he looked around at his gathered supporters. In that charged moment, every decision he had made seemed to converge on this single point of crisis. The stray family, so symbolically innocent and resilient, rested quietly by the fire, unaware of the high-stakes drama unfolding around them. Their very presence had become a beacon of hope, yet also a magnet for those with darker intentions. For long seconds, silence reigned as Michael absorbed the gravity of the ultimatum. His mind flashed back to Elaine's words, "Compassion is our legacy," and he felt the weight of responsibility settle over him like a shroud. In that moment, he realized that he could no longer hide behind uncertainty or fear. His actions now would not only define his own future, but would also determine the fate of the legacy Elaine had entrusted to him. With a trembling but resolute voice, Michael spoke, "I will transform my shelter into a fully accredited facility. I will cooperate with the legal authorities, and I will expose any corruption that threatens to undermine this mission of saving lives. I refuse to let fear extinguish the light of compassion." His words, though measured, carried the force of a final stand. The room fell silent as each person absorbed his declaration. Mr. Harrington's expression remained inscrutable, yet the tension in his posture betrayed a hint of unease. The representatives from the network exchanged glances, their faces hardening as if bracing for an inevitable clash. Outside, the black van lurked as a dark omen, its presence underscoring the gravity of Michael's challenge. In that peak moment of confrontation, as the storm raged outside and the room pulsed with the energy of collective resolve, Michael knew that the time for half measures was over. The next step would determine not just the future of his shelter, but the very integrity of Elaine's legacy, and ultimately the power of compassion in a world that had long forgotten its warmth. Under the oppressive gloom of the relentless winter storm, The tension in Michael's living room reached its breaking point. Every face was illuminated by the flickering light of the fireplace as thunder rumbled outside and the bitter wind howled. Outside, the ominous black van still lurked at the edge of the property, a constant reminder that dark forces were closing in. In that charged atmosphere, the future of Michael's sanctuary and Elaine's legacy hung in the balance. Suddenly, the front door burst open with a force that startled everyone. In strode Officer Ramirez, an unassuming but determined figure whose eyes burned with resolve. "I'm Officer Ramirez," he announced in a firm yet compassionate tone, "and I've been reviewing your case." His gaze swept the room, pausing briefly on Michael, whose trembling hands clutched his journal. "There is evidence, documented footage, official reports, that indicates Mr. Harrington's organization has been engaging in illegal surveillance and coercion. They've been using your shelter as a cover for their illicit activities." A collective murmur rose among those gathered. Michael's heart pounded as Officer Ramirez placed a thick envelope on the table. "Inside this envelope are documents and verified videos," he continued, "showing that not only has your property been monitored without your consent, but that there have been deliberate attempts by a private network to stifle genuine rescue operations." His voice, both authoritative and empathetic, cut through the charged silence. Mr. Harrington's cool facade wavered under the weight of the revelation. "This is preposterous," he spat, his voice now edged with anger. But before he could retort, Officer Ramirez interjected, "We have already alerted higher authorities. An independent investigation is underway, and further evidence will soon confirm that your operation is not the problem. It's the exploitation of it by those who seek control." In that moment, Daniel, who had remained silent until now, spoke up, his voice cracking with emotion. "I knew Elaine's work was pure. Michael's shelter, born out of pure compassion, is under attack by forces that twist kindness for profit and power." His words, earnest and raw, resonated deeply in the room. Laura had her camera still recording every moment, stepped forward and added, "Michael, your story isn't one of defiance for its own sake. It's a testament to the transformative power of compassion. Today that you've shown that even the darkest threats can be overcome when we stand for what's right." Her quiet support bolstered Michael's wavering spirit. The room grew still as Officer Ramirez continued, "Mr. Harrington, you are hereby detained for further questioning regarding your organization's activities." As a group of officers moved in to escort him out, Harrington's protests faltered under the force of incontrovertible evidence. His carefully constructed veneer shattered, leaving him speechless and isolated. In that pivotal moment, Michael felt a surge of vindication and relief wash over him. Tears sprang to his eyes, not just for the loss he had endured with Elaine, but for the hope now rekindled in his heart. "This shelter was never about breaking the law," Michael declared, his voice resonating with newfound strength. "It's about saving lives, about keeping Elaine's promise alive. Compassion is our legacy, and no one can take that away from us." Dr. Carter, who had been a steady presence by Michael's side throughout the ordeal, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Your courage, Michael, has sparked a change far beyond these walls. Today, we've shown that true kindness can expose corruption and inspire justice." Her words, gentle yet resolute, reinforced the triumph of the moment. As the first light of dawn began to seep through the heavy clouds outside, the atmosphere shifted palpably. The oppressive weight of the storm seemed to recede, as if compelled by the force of truth and compassion that had emerged in the living room. Officer Ramirez's revelation had not only disarmed the threat, but had also united the room in a shared purpose: to honor Elaine's memory and protect the vulnerable. Michael stood tall amidst the chaos, surrounded by his supporters, neighbors, friends, and even once skeptical officials who now saw the undeniable value of his mission. "Today we have not only defended this shelter, but have sent a clear message," Michael said, his voice steady and resolute. "In a world where cruelty and greed can sometimes prevail, the light of genuine compassion can illuminate even the coldest winter nights." The black van, which had loomed as a dark omen, now sat silent and empty at the edge of the property, a symbol of a threat diminished by the power of collective integrity. As Michael's words echoed in the room, a sense of renewal began to blossom. The crisis had reached its climax, and with it, a transformative turning point was set in motion. Elaine's legacy, once a tender memory, had become a rallying cry for change. In that climactic moment, as the storm subsided outside and hope filled the room, Michael knew that his journey was far from over. Yet, he was ready to face whatever came next, bolstered by the unwavering belief that compassion, no matter how fragile, could overcome the harshest of adversities. As dawn broke over the once turbulent winter landscape, Michael's sanctuary exuded a new sense of calm, a gentle warmth that seemed to melt away the lingering chill of past uncertainties. The events of the past weeks had transformed his modest home into a beacon of hope and resilience. Now, in the soft early light, Michael took a deep, steady breath and allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The turmoil, the conflict, and the looming threats had all led to this turning point, a vindication of his belief in compassion and the enduring power of Elaine's legacy. In the days that followed the climactic confrontation, Michael worked tirelessly to implement the changes that would secure his shelter's future. With the assistance of Dr. Carter, legal advisors, and even some reformed members of the once skeptical local authorities, he began the process of converting his informal rescue operation into a fully accredited animal care facility. Every document signed and every regulation met was a step toward transforming his humble refuge into a sanctuary that could serve the broader community, one that not only provided immediate warmth and shelter, but also inspired others to act with kindness. The investigation into Elaine's past and the shadowy network that had once threatened to exploit her work continued in parallel. Laura's reports, now more measured and insightful, chronicled the story with a careful balance of personal emotion and hard-hitting facts. Through her lens, the world learned of Elaine's secret dedication to rescuing vulnerable animals, and the extent to which her compassionate actions had sparked an underground movement, one that had now been exposed and is slowly being reformed for the greater good. Daniel's involvement, once a source of hesitation, became a cornerstone of the renewed effort, as old wounds gradually healed and transformed into a shared commitment to honor Elaine's memory. In the midst of these institutional changes, the transformation of the stray family served as a living symbol of hope. The mother dog, once burdened by the harshness of an unforgiving winter, now exuded a quiet dignity, her eyes no longer filled solely with fear but with the gratitude of survival. Her 3 puppies, once fragile and trembling, began to thrive under Michael's care, playing, growing, and filling the sanctuary with laughter and life. Their innocent resilience reinforced the belief that every act of compassion could ripple outward, inspiring change even in the darkest of times. For Michael, the journey was as much internal as it was external. The isolation and grief that had defined his early years gradually gave way to a burgeoning sense of connection. Neighbors who had once viewed him as a solitary artist began to engage in meaningful conversations, offering help and sharing in the collective vision of a community bound by empathy. Michael discovered that opening his heart to others did not dilute Elaine's memory. It enriched it, creating a living legacy of care and unity. In every shared meal, every supportive word, and every small act of community service, he felt Elaine's presence guiding him, affirming that compassion was indeed a force capable of overcoming even the coldest challenges. At a celebratory gathering held at the newly established shelter, now officially named Warmth Haven, Michael addressed the assembled community. His voice, steady and imbued with heartfelt conviction, carried a message of hope. We have all witnessed that in the midst of relentless adversity, love and kindness prevail. Elaine once believed that compassion is our legacy, and today we stand together to prove that this legacy is not only alive, but thriving. Each life saved, each act of care, is a victory against the forces that seek to divide us. His words were met with applause and tears of joy as people from all walks of life pledged to support the cause and to spread the message of hope. In the weeks that followed, Warmth Haven became more than a shelter. It evolved into a symbol of transformation. Local schools organized volunteer days, community artists painted murals celebrating the rescue, and even the once distant local authorities began to champion the initiative. Michael's journey had grown from a solitary act of compassion into a movement that touched countless lives. Now, as Michael stands at the threshold of this new era, a place where the memory of Elaine and the resilience of the stray family converge, he reflects on the long road traveled. The struggles, the pain, and the fierce battles against shadowy forces had given way to a future bathed in the light of human kindness and communal support. His once lonely home is now a vibrant hub of shared dreams and mutual care, a living testament to the idea that even in the harshest winters, the warmth of compassion can ignite a revolution. Before I sign off, I want to invite you to be part of this ongoing journey. If Michael's story has touched your heart and shown you that one small act of kindness can create ripples of change, please subscribe to our channel. Share your thoughts in the comments below about how compassion has transformed your life or your community. And remember, every act of kindness matters because together we can make the world a warmer place, one life at a time. Watch our next video to see how Warmth Haven continues to grow and inspire hope in the face of adversity. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay kind, stay compassionate, and keep the warmth alive.